Good evening. My name's Paul, and I'm a full-blown alcoholic. And I'm glad to be here. Alcoholics they always say that. They're glad to be any place. But I'm glad to be here to this meeting. Particularly, I had no idea that there were this many drunks in Paramount. You must breed them here or something like that. Anyhow, and all the newcomers and all the chips and all that. And I'm always, and I like being at a meeting where the room is too small for the number of alcoholics. Where no matter if it's a big room or a little room, if it's too small, then the alcoholics all get jammed together. And when you jam alcoholics together, they generate a great deal of energy, and that energy is love. And you can just feel the love and the enthusiasm in this room. And I feel bad to see some people have to stand, but then a little voice says, "What the hell? You've got to stand," you know. Just do the best you can, I guess. I'm like Jim. I really love AA. I just love AA. In fact, I love this way of life so much that I am happy to be an alcoholic. I like being an alcoholic. Yourself. I can't say that I always felt that way about it, but now that I'm sober, being sober helps a little bit in making you like AA. I like this way of life. I like AA, and I wouldn't have this way of life if I weren't an alcoholic, or if I had it, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to actually do the things that are. In fact, I've never seen that any place in the club before that says "in memory of the winners." When I came in, they kept saying "stick with the winners, stick with the winners," and you don't hear it much anymore. But I was at a meeting in Carlsbad a week or so ago, and the fellow had been out and. Well, anyway, I won't tell you his story, but he was saying that earlier that day he was watching daytime TV, some Oprah show or something like that, and he said that somebody asked this other person, "What's a winner?" And the person didn't have an answer, and they turned it over to this psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said that a winner. No, what's the difference between a winner and a loser was the question. And the answer he gave was that a loser is a person who won't do the things that winners do. And I thought, that's AA. In AA, as Jim touched on so much, being a winner means doing the things that winners do. And when they say stick with the winners, that's what they mean. Be around winners and do the things they do. And just follow suit and do things that you think are real dumb and unnecessary and stupid. I mean, like the stupid business of having to embarrass the hell out of yourself and stand up as a newcomer, you know, and tell the whole world you're an alcoholic, if you call this the whole world. But it's a stupid, dumb, silly, childish thing to do, but it keeps us sober. It keeps us sober. And even when you go out and drink again, you come back and you start over as a newcomer and stand up whether you think it's a good idea or not. And I did a lot of dumb things. I wrote in a 4-step just to prove it wouldn't work. And the truth of the matter is the 4th step doesn't care why I did it. It just cares that you get it done. And a lot of this program can work. Just do it to prove that you're going to go along with it. Speaking of the steps, I was talking to a newcomer yesterday. He came to the house, and we talked for about an hour and a half. And he, mostly at that time, I'd let him tell me his story. And he had been around AA since 1984. And he'd been in and out of AA, and in and out, and in and out, and in and out, and in and out. And he was a professional man, an attorney, so he wasn't too stupid or anything. And he had been to lots and lots of meetings, and yet I asked him questions like, why do you think you haven't been able to make the program? And he gave me a whole lot of goofy reasons, and again, a typical alcoholic. And I said, well, describe to me the AA program. How do you see the AA program? I asked him all kinds of questions I could think of to get him to tell me what was missing in his recovery program. And it never occurred to him that he had never done the steps, that the steps played some part in AA. You know? And I thought, you stupid idiot. I'm very gentle with newcomers. I also pointed out to him that I only sponsor winners, and that now if he drank, it was different than from before. It wasn't just a question of him getting drunk, it was a question of him blowing my reputation, by God. I have a vested interest in his sobriety. He's going to say... Anyhow, I guess I should talk about drinking. I used to drink, but I wasn't one of those dumb alcoholics. But I did occasionally get in trouble when I drank. I would get sick, really get sick when I drank. But I checked that out, and that was because I drank on an empty stomach. You should never drink on an empty stomach. You end up sick if you drink on an empty stomach. And then I had times when I got sick and I hadn't drunk on an empty stomach. And I found out that that's because I mixed my drinks. You should never mix your drinks. And then I had it happen that I got sick and I hadn't drunk on an empty stomach and I hadn't mixed my drinks. But that was due to the fact that I had gotten some bad booze. There's a lot of bad booze out there. And from what I see from the AA research workers who keep checking it for us, they're not making it any better today than they ever did. And so I'm going to stay in here. And I used to drink before I went to church dinner dances. I don't like church dinner dances. I was... grew up in a drugstore in a small town, and in a small town you have to go to all the church functions, and you have to go to church dinner dances, and I don't like church dinner dances because there's a lot of people there. You have to talk to them, a lot of people there, and you have to talk to them. You have to talk chit-chat, and I don't like to talk chit-chat. I don't like chit-chat. And you also can't not dance at a church dinner dance. You can't, because every church dinner dance has at least one hyperactive woman. Yourself. I'm sitting there minding my own business and just minding my own business, and they'll come running up to you and say, "Come on, Paul, let's dance." And I very politely would say, "No, thank you, I can't dance." And they always say, "Oh, yes, you can," and drag you out on the floor and prove to the whole world that you can't dance. You know. I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but in retrospect, I can see that what I did is I got to where I would have a few drinks before I went to the church dinner dances. You can't drink. You have to drink at a church dinner dance, because if you don't, they'll know you have a problem. But they count your drinks, so you have to be very careful that you're drinking. So I'd have my drinks before I went to church dinner dance, and have one drink while I was there, and it would relax me physically and mentally. And it would relax me mentally, and I could chit-chat. I was a really good chit-chatter. I could give chit-chat lessons, as a matter of fact. And it relaxed me physically, and I could dance. I could really dance. That was really good. I could get dancing lessons. And it worked real fine. But over time, and looking back on it, only in retrospect, and this was many, many years before I became an alcoholic, but looking back on it, those two got out of sync. And I wouldn't have even begun to have relaxed mentally yet, and I would get too relaxed physically. It would maybe affect my speech, and I would slur my speech, and so I would talk slowly and deliberately so nobody would notice. Or I would trip. I would trip when there was nothing to trip Ultimately, I would find myself lying there, looking very serene. And my mind would say, "Get up, you fool. People will think you're drunk." And my body would say, "What do you mean, get up? We're paralyzed from the ears down." And I would lie there and think, how isn't that strange? I have never heard of anybody who would get paralyzed from the ears down on what little you've had to drink. I mean, I wonder what, you must be very sensitive to this stuff. You must be allergic to it or something. I'll have to find somebody to ask about that. I was thinking like maybe a allergy professor, because I was in the pharmacy school then and medical school later, and I was thinking I'd ask a allergy professor, but I never found anybody to ask. You can't ask just anybody a question like that, because you have to be careful, because they're liable to say, "Well, I don't know why that does that to you, but if it did that to me, my God, I wouldn't drink it." I didn't want to know what to do about it. I just want to know why it did that to me. And it was an interesting problem, too. I was glad to have the problem because it took my mind off my full bladder. Oh, that wasn't funny at all. I don't recall ever having being paralyzed from the ears down that I didn't also have a full bladder. A bladder that absolutely refused to remain full. And the bad part about that is that's one thing that AA has not helped me with. I've always had a low bladder capacity, and it's no better today than it was then. It's no better for AA coffee than it was for beer. But I'm not complaining though, because even though my capacity has not improved, my aim has improved tremendously. And I like that. And Max likes that too. And anyhow, I kept on drinking, kept on getting in trouble, and ended up having some convulsions. And by that time I was a physician. I was a diagnostician, a specialist in diagnosis and doing consultations and that. And when doctors had patients, they didn't know what was wrong with them, they send it to me, and I would do an elaborate workup and consultation with them, and tell them what was wrong with them, make the diagnosis, tell them what was wrong, what to do about it. And I see that I was losing weight. I had convulsions, I had daily headaches, I had a sense of impending insanity. I thought I was going crazy. I thought, my God, I need a good medical workup. I need a good diagnostician. Well, I happened to be the best diagnostician I knew at the time. And I sat down and had a consultation with me. And I saw that I'd been losing weight. I had these terrible headaches. I had this sense of impending insanity. I thought I was going crazy. The world was going topsy-turvy. And suddenly it was obvious to me I had a brain tumor. I'd die and you'd all be sorry, by God. And as a matter of fact, I ended up in the Mayo Clinic. And they couldn't figure out why I had convulsions, and until my wife snuck over there and told the neurosurgeon who was looking for my brain tumor that I was taking a few pills at night. And later on, years later, I got a copy of the letter that he sent back to the doctor, the neurologist that sent me there, and it said that I had a condition that was all too common in the medical profession at this time, and one for which they had no ready answer. They didn't even know how to treat alcoholism, chemical dependency at that time. That was back in 1966. Since then, they've opened the recovery unit, but now they've closed it because insurance doesn't pay for it anymore. But anyway, that neurologist I was going to, the best neurologist in Orange County, he was treating me with Atlantin and phenobarbital for epilepsy. He didn't know. He didn't. You're saying, "Who because of phenobarbital?" That's nothing. I didn't even count that. I remember when they decided to put Percodan on a triplicate prescription, and I thought, what are they putting that on a triplicate prescription for? I take that all the time. It doesn't bother me any. We're not supposed to talk about drugs. This is AA meeting, but now that you mention it, My problem was I wasn't. If I had a reason for drinking, it was because I couldn't sleep at night. I had trouble sleeping. I couldn't get to sleep, and I found out way back in pharmacy school that I could take a couple of beers before I went to bed and sleep real fast and wake up smart, and that's what I did. That's how I worked my way through pharmacy school, graduated with honors. Later on, medical school, graduated with honors. But what happened was that any drug I ever used, and including alcohol, it did the job that I was taking it for, but it took, over a period of time, it took more and more to do it, and the good effect lasted for a shorter and shorter period of time, so I had to take more of it more often, and then the next thing was it had side effects that made me take something else. And so it was really progressive. I mean, better living through chemistry was very progressive for me. And finally, the ultimate of that was, in order to get to sleep, I used to inject pentothal, amytal, nembutal, phenobarbital, anything at all, in order to get to sleep at night. I would keep the stuff in my bag in the car, and the car in the garage, thank God the garage was attached to the house. And I would go work all day, take pills all day, and at night I would drink myself to get ready to sleep. Then I would decide it was time to finally go to sleep. I'd go out in the garage, mix up the amytal, put it in the syringe, stick the needle in my vein, try to figure out how much sedative I've had, how much amphetamine have I had, how much I can squirt it in, take it out, take it out, throw it in the bag, of the car, slam the car door, run down the hall, and jump in bed so I could fall asleep. It was very tricky. The least little bit too much, and I squirted in, I just zing right under the car. But worse than that would be just the least little bit not enough. And I would squirt it in, take it out, take it around, throw in the back car, slam the car door, run down the hall, and jump in bed, and nothing would happen. Yeah. Half measures got me nowhere, and it was very frustrating. But it wasn't very practical anyway, because you take the needle out of the vein, you're supposed to put a Band-Aid and a sterile dressing on it. No, I didn't have time for that nonsense. And so I would hold my arm up like this, hoping gravity would take care of it, and do all this other stuff with one hand. I'd run down the hall to the bedroom, and I'd run into my wife, and I'd try to look casual, It's hard to be casual when you're in a hurry. One time the dog got in my way and I almost killed the dog. I was in a hurry. And anyhow, I ended up in that ward there, and in the Mayo Clinic, I signed out of that dump, came back home, and told the neurologist about the psychiatrist. He had me see a psychiatrist there. I went to see the psychiatrist, talked to me for 10 minutes. No, he talked to Max for 10 minutes, my wife. He talked to me for 45 minutes. He locked me up in the local nut ward. The hospital I was on the staff of. And they wanted me to make leather belts. I didn't understand their philosophy, and I didn't understand the instructions. But I remember one day sitting there, commiserating with myself of how a nice guy like me ended up in a place like that. And he walked up behind me, and he wanted to know would I be willing to talk to a man from Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought to myself, my God, don't I have enough problems of my own without trying to help some drunk from AA? But I could tell by the look on his face that he thought it was a good idea, and I don't know if you know that or not, but happiness on a nut ward is having a happy psychiatrist. And I was willing to go to any length to make him happy. So I said yes, and in no time at all, this clown comes galloping into the room, yelling at the top of his voice, "My name is Frank, and I'm an alcoholic." Ah, ha, 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 ha. I thought, my God, man, why don't you lower your voice? These people all think I'm a nut. Why don't we leave it at that? And told an interminable story. Went on and on and on and on. I have no idea what he said, but I know it ended finally by him saying, "Well, I'm going to meeting. That's my story. I'm going to meeting tonight. Would you like to go along?" And I said, "Hell no, I won't like it. But I'll go," because I knew he'd go back and squeal to that dumb psychiatrist. And we went off to the meeting, and I don't know what meeting we were at. I don't know how many meetings we went to before I knew what meeting I was at, but I know that meeting had a profound effect on the psychiatrist. He was now suddenly suspiciously very interested in AA. What's this about a book? What's this about steps? what's this about meetings? How often they have meetings? What other kind of meetings do they have? How soon are you going again? I thought, my God, I've got me an alcoholic psychiatrist. He's ashamed to go, so he's sending me. And so I thought, well, I don't know how many brownie points I'm getting per meeting, but I'm going to go as many meetings as I can so I can get out of this dump. We went to meetings every day, except Frank wasn't sure he was going to take me on Friday. He thought he might have a date with his girlfriend. I thought, well, that's a hell of a way to run an organization. And I reported him to the psychiatrist. We got somebody else to take me on Friday night, and I finally got enough brownie points, and I got discharged from the hospital. I had no intention of coming back. Why would I? I wasn't an alcoholic. The problem I ran into was that my wife liked the meetings. I'd say, she's not even an alcoholic. And I'd say, let's go to a movie. And she'd say, no, let's go to an AA meeting. They're more fun. In fact, when she wouldn't act right, then I would tell her I wasn't going to go to AA anymore. Well, we lived in Anaheim, went to the meetings in Laguna Beach, so we wouldn't run into anybody we knew. And she couldn't drive the freeway, but she did it anyway. She got in the car and would drive to Laguna Beach. Somehow she'd get down there all by herself. And here would be Saturday night, and I'd be at home all by myself drinking, while my non-alcoholic spouse is off laughing it up at an AA meeting. I thought it was very rude, and I had to go back to the meetings with her to find out what they were laughing about. And I went to meetings trying to figure it out for 7 months. And I went to one meeting too many, and I found myself laughing with them, and I haven't had a drink since. And it seems to me that's the way AA is, that we laugh at ourselves. I thought it was ridiculous the way they laughed at things they ought to be ashamed of and cried at things they ought to be laughing about, but we laugh at ourselves. It's like that old Chinese proverb. I guess all Chinese proverbs are old. Anyway, the proverb that says, blessed are they who can laugh at themselves, they shall never cease to be entertained. And so I think we have the best kind of humor here, and I think it's going to keep us going a long time. And anyhow, I became an alcoholic, and so I could quit drinking, I guess, because I never had a slip. I've never had a slip. People go in and out and in and out. That sounds real painful and distressing to me. I found it much easier to just drink between meetings. But finally, and the thing I had trouble with, too, is I couldn't identify with you people here. I was ashamed of you and ashamed to be here, and I didn't want the people out there to know I was here, and I didn't want you to know I was here, and I was ashamed of the whole thing. I mean, I am perhaps the best intentioned person you will ever meet. I am very proud of my intentions. And I came here, and God, you had these little chicken shit in goals in life, and things are not worth talking about at all. I mean, I remember the day I saw a big, healthy, husky young guy stand up at an AA podium, and he says, if I don't drink today, I'm a success today. And I thought, oh my God, big damn deal. Call your mommy and tell her you haven't had a beer today, Of course, I was still drinking at the time. But I carried that a long time, that what a nothing group of people you were in that sense. And one day, I got the realization that if this is the bottom of the social barrel, and staying sober one day at a time is a nothing sort of goal, and I can't meet that goal, you got the idea. If I can't make it at the bottom, I ain't never going to make it nowhere up higher. and with that realization, I had watched a lot of people come and go, and I used to ask the winners, what do you do to stay sober? And I'd ask the guys that were coming in and going out, and what do you do to stay sober? Because I got the idea I wanted to do what the winners do and not do what the people that aren't winners are doing. And I got the idea that if I want to, I may not be a winner, but I want to be a successful member of AA. I decided if this is such a low-grade organization and it really doesn't mean anything, I'm going to be a success here. I'm going to be a successful member of AA. Now, I don't remember saying that to anybody else but myself. But that's been my goal up to and including today. That I want to be a successful member of AA. And in fact, even today, when I have a decision to make as to whether I should do this or do that, it used to be I think, well, if I do this, you'll do that. But maybe you won't, so maybe I ought to do this, but maybe I can't trust you, and all those manipulations. Today, I don't have to do any of that. I just ask myself, what would an AA winner do? Or what would God want me to do? Or what's the loving thing to do? All of which are essentially the same. They are the same question. And if I do a thing, I'm thoroughly convinced that if I do a thing for the right motive, and leave the results up to God, everything will turn out exactly the way it's supposed to. May not turn out the way I want it. That's how I find out God's will. I just do what's in front of me, do the loving thing, leave the results up to God, and how it turns out, that's God's will. And it works very easy for me. It's so much simpler than anything I had done before. And in fact, this whole program is so much simpler. I never cease to be amazed at how easy it is for me to not drink today and not take any drugs, which was impossible before. The thing that was impossible is now easy. Now, because I'm living in the answer instead of living in the problem. And I find it's a simple way to go, and I thoroughly enjoy that. And it all comes from the steps. I love the steps as a way of life. And the first step, the powerlessness, so often when I'm struggling with something that bothers me and I have a problem, I come to the realization, well, I'm powerless over that. And I think, oh, well, if I'm powerless over it, then I really don't have a problem. There's nothing I can do about it. And I wallow in my powerlessness and enjoy it. And well, it's the same way, you laugh at that, but it's the same way with the defects of character in the 6th and 7th step. I will take a defective character, such as difficulty sleeping, or fear, or depression, or things like that, and I'll take one at a time, and I'll say, God, the 7th-step prayer says, my Creator, I'm now willing you should have all of me, good and bad. And I'll say, God, I want you to take this defect, and I say my fear, and I'd like you to remove it completely, but I know you have that loophole about whether it's helpful to you or to my fellows. Now, I know you have that loophole, but take the defect, sleep on it tonight, and in the morning, you give me the amount of it you want me to have, and I will accept it as a gift from you. And the thing is that it's like Father Terry says, didn't he just talk here not recently? Recently? I don't know if he said it then, but he says other times, become friendly with your defect. Become friendly with your defect. In fact, one of the poets says, they call defects demons. And he said, hug your demon. Hug your demon. Otherwise, it'll bite you in the ass. That's the way poets talk. But I become friendly with my defect and don't fight it. 'Cause the worst thing I can do with a defect is fight it or work on it. They love the challenge. I mean, that really energizes them for me to work on the thing and that. And I'm speaking. I think I mentioned depression. Depression is one of my favorite moods. I love to feel depressed. And depression has a lot of redeeming social value because it takes all those problems, and narrows them down to just one problem, me. Me. It's all me. The whole world comes down to just me. And I have trouble distinguishing sometimes, often between depression and self-pity. But what I find, one of the things that a non-program thing that helps me with my depression is exercise. Now, this has nothing to do with the program, so newcomers don't pay attention to this. But I find exercise really works for my depression. So, in fact, this is my bragging story. I'll tell it quickly so we can get out of here. But my story is that I am the only 80-year-old I know who has worn out his treadmill before it wore him out. Some years back, I bought a treadmill, and I don't usually buy service contracts, but I thought with a treadmill, I'll buy a service contract. So I got a service contract. Well, I wore out the tread, and they replaced it. I wore out the main bearing, and they replaced that. I wore out something else, and they replaced that. Then the company that made the treadmill went out of business. But that didn't put my service contract out of business, so I reminded them of that, and they said, okay, you go back to Montgomery Ward, and you pick out the best treadmill you can find, and we'll pick it up and deliver it for you and set it up. So I now am in the process of trying to wear out my second treadmill. And I spend 40 minutes every morning, 7 days a week, on my treadmill, and I don't want to do that. But I do it because I feel good. It's like standing up as a newcomer in the first 30 days. It's like a lot of the stupid things we do here. You may not want to do it, but we do it anyway because the benefit is greater than the discomfort of doing it. And it's the sort of thing that feels good to have done it. It feels great to have done a fifth step. And it feels great to have made the amends. You really move to a new level on your recovery program when that happens. The thing that I was thinking the other day about how if I made a graph of my life was on a downhill course from the beginning up until July 31st, 1967. It was on a downhill course. There wasn't a straight line down. It was up and down, just enough ups to keep me confused. But I ended up in the nut ward of the hospital that's on the staff of. And that wasn't bad enough. I had to go to AA. And I went to AA for 7 months. And on July 31st, 1967, I finally accepted the fact that I, of all people, strange as it might seem, even though I had no choice in the matter, didn't make a decision to do it, had nothing to do with it really, but I really am a very mild alcoholic. And since then, my alcoholism has been getting progressively worse. It's a progressive disease, whether you drink it or not. The nice part of it is recovery is progressive too, and my life's been getting better and better and better. It's not a straight line up either. It's up and down, up and down. There's all kinds of things that I can do to get it to go back up once it's dropped down. If nothing else, I can just sit still and wait. That's one of the Bible quotes. Says the Bible says, and it came to pass. The Bible doesn't say, and it came to stay. My life is better today than it's ever been, and as far as I can tell, there's nothing. The only thing that determines how high limits how high that can go is how long I can stay around doing the things I'm doing that's keeping it going up. But I can't get all this program has to offer. I know that because nobody can get all this program has to offer. But I want all I can get. I want all I can get. One other thought. It fascinates me, the shape of that V, the point of the V. What was the thing that changed the course of my life from getting progressively worse to getting progressively better was the act of acceptance. And my life, everything in my life, if I resist it, it keeps getting worse until I accept it. And once I accept it, then it starts getting better. It just happens over and over again, not just with my alcoholism. But the thing that impresses me is, as smart as I am, why did it take me so long to wake up to the fact that I needed to accept that obvious reality that I was an alcoholic? And the answer I come up with is that I was confusing acceptance with approval. I had in mind that if I accept the fact I'm an alcoholic, that would indicate to the whole world that I approved of me being an alcoholic. And I didn't. And I realized that acceptance has nothing to do with approval. In fact, approval is an impediment to acceptance. And it's like asking the question, why? Why? and it's an impediment to acceptance. And now today, I approve of the fact that I'm an alcoholic. The approval came after acceptance, not before it. And that God is hard, and I think you've been a wonderful audience. I really thank you for putting up with me in the heat. Thank you very much. Happy sobriety.